with you this afternoon. So please turn to page 12, session 3, page 12, Building the Community and Civil Society Beyond the Boundaries of Race and Religion. I'm going to read this first section in toto, section A. Why is living for the sake of others so important? God knows that a selfish relationship is self-destructive. Nothing can flourish based on selfishness. Selfishness eventually leads to self-extinction. God knows that an eternal and prospering relationship can never come about through selfish taking. So God built the universe upon the principle of unselfishness. God created everything in this universe to be complementary. Everything is made for others. The ideal husband and wife live for each other. A patriot is one who gives himself or herself unselfishly for the benefit of the nation and for their own countrymen. According to this same principle, who can we say is the greatest man in all history? Yes, Jesus Christ was indeed the saint of all saints. He set the supreme example of a giving, loving, and unselfish way of life. He not only taught love your enemy, but he really lived that principle. He gave his life for his enemies. The Bible teaches this one principle from cover to cover, this selfless way of life in God. Jesus said, "There is no greater love than laying down your life for your friend." From the very beginning, God has been constantly working to bring humanity into the knowledge of this selfless way of life. One day, God will bring the perfection of that kind of life on this earth. That will be the day of the kingdom of God. Taken from God's Way of Life, Reverend Sun Myung Moon, 1984. Jesus also admonished his followers to love their enemies and to pray for them that despitefully use them. This teaching fell upon the ears of many of his hearers like a strange music from a foreign land. Their ears were not attuned to the tonal qualities of such amazing love. They had been taught to love their friends and hate their enemies. Their lives had been conditioned to seek redress in the time-honored tradition of retaliation. Yet Jesus taught them that only through creative love for their enemies could they be children of their Father in heaven, and also that love and forgiveness were absolute necessities for spiritual maturity. From Strength to Love, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And let's go to the bottom paragraph from St. Paul. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we seek only a reflection as a mirror. Now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. The Holy Bible from 1 Corinthians 13. 1 Corinthians 13. Now let us turn to page 17, please. Page 17. Session 4, America as God's Hope. What is America's founding spirit? The top paragraph. I sought for the greatness and genius of America in her commodious harbors and her ample rivers, and it was not there. In her fertile fields and boundless forests, and it was not there. In her rich mines and her vast world commerce, and it was not there. In her democratic Congress and her matchless Constitution, and it was not there. Not until I went into the churches of America and heard her pulpits aflame with righteousness did I understand the secret of her genius and power. America is great because she is good. And if America ever ceases to be good, she will cease to be great. Democracy in America, Alexis de Tocqueville, 1935. Please turn to the next page, 18. The top paragraph. It is now the time for religion to exert genuine leadership in the world. I believe that religious people should feel responsible for the situation of humankind and for resolving the various inequities of this age. Profound self-reflection is surely prerequisite to this. Religious people have failed to set an example in the practice of love. Let me read that again. Religious people have failed to set the example in the practice of love. Now is indeed the time for them to repent for not having exerted themselves fully for the sake of world salvation. Instead, they have been absorbed with the pursuit of individual salvation and denominational interests. Mere belief in love is not enough. It must be accompanied by its practice. God is calling the leaders of society, but in particular the religious leaders. He wants us to challenge the injustices and sins of the world and establish true love in their place. All religious people should become one in heart, representing and carrying out God's aspiration for all people. Interreligious and International Federation for World Peace inaugural address, Reverend Sun Myung Moon, February the 6th, 1999, Seoul, Korea. Let us go down to the last paragraph on the same page. On some positions, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? And vanity comes along and asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must do it because conscience tells him it is right. Dr. Martin Luther King, A Testament of Hope, The Essential Writings and Speeches. And page 19, right in the middle, it is time. It is time for America to awaken once again. It is time for this country to create a new movement to build God-centered true parents, true families, a true country, and a true world. In this way, America will keep God here at home. America will once again be a society that attends God. God worked 1,000 years to establish America. If God leaves America, where can he go? If America attends God properly, all our problems, family problems, moral problems, youth problems, racial problems, will disappear. As a place where people of all races and nations can live together in harmony, America will be a model for the kingdom of heaven on earth. The Path for Humanity, for America and Humanity in the Last Days. Reverend Sun Myung Moon, February 21st, 2000, Washington, D.C. And on to page 21, right in the middle, right under the header D. We each need to take an active role in changing the course of our nation if we are to live up to the motto, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are the pinnacle nation in the world right now. But if the example of the Egypt, Greece, Rome, and Great Britain teach us anything, it is the pinnacle nations are not guaranteed their place forever. If we fail to rediscover the basic principles of common sense, manners, and morality, we will go the same way they did. Fortunately, our downward pathway is not an inexorable one. It is not too late to learn from the mistakes of those who preceded us and take the kinds of corrective action that will ensure a promising future for those who come after us. One Nation, Dr. Ben Carson. And our final reading, page 22, beginning at the second paragraph. When our days become dreary, with low hovering clouds of despair, and when our nights become darker than 1,000 midnights, let us remember that there is a creative force in this universe, working to pull down the gigantic mountains of evil, a power that is able to make a way out of no way, and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. Let us realize the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Addressed to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., August the 16th, 1967. And continuing. True patriotism does not begin on the level of the nation. You must find it first in the family. In other words, the pattern of loving at the family level is the model for all relationships of love in every level of society. The relationships between parents and children, husband and wife, and brothers and sisters, are the basic patterns of love. If you have a deep understanding of unity and a spiritual love at home, all you have to do is expand it to the level of society and nation, and you have patriotism. If you create the right kind of atmosphere of family love, then you won't have to educate your children too much in terms of patriotism and love for humanity, because they can easily extend their love and respect for their parents to the nation's leaders. Loving the neighbors will be as natural as relating to their brothers and sisters. Those who have experienced the warmth of a loving home won't be baffled by the concept of patriotism, it will immediately make sense to them. But to those whose home was devoid of love, any talk of patriotism is an empty gesture. What you need here in America is the right tradition of love, even if it means omitting the State Department or some other government function. The government is not what determines the prosperity of America. What you need to absolutely guarantee the prosperity of this nation is the right tradition of love. Host of the Future, Reverend Sun Myung Moon, October 23rd, 1977, Tarrytown, New York, Belvedere. Thank you very much for your attention.
12 for a brief bit of inspiration and commentary, I'd like to invite up Mr. Ron Pappalardo. He is an author. He's written a book, several books, 4 books actually, and he's also a historian. He's a graduate of in history of the New York Regents College, and he is also a graduate of the seminary, the same Unification Theological Seminary that Dr. Tyler Hendricks was a professor at. So let's warmly embrace and welcome up Mr. Ron Pappalardo. Oh, and he is also a husband and a father of 4.
Not a grandfather yet, still working on that one. Good afternoon. So I've been asked to speak about uniting our communities and America's role in the world. So America, if you think about America, what is America? Is it a piece of land? Is it a certain race of people? Actually not. As you can see, we have people of all races living in America, so it's not a particular race of people. It's not a particular piece of land. When America was formed in 1776, actually the French and Spanish controlled more North American territory than America did. So it's beyond just a piece of land or a group of people. America is an idea. It's an idea. It's the idea that all human beings are created equal, that they have equal value. And it's the idea that human rights come from God. So enshrined in our Declaration of Independence are the words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The nice thing about the American idea is that it's a universal idea. It doesn't just apply to Americans. All people have these God-given rights. You know, Reverend Moon in the 1980s said that America must fulfill its responsibility to take on the burdens of the world, including that of the countries whose people are oppressed and massacred by communism, so that we have a responsibility to liberate those people. And you know, during the Cold War, Reverend Moon was very, very, very clear. He had what I call moral clarity, that we must call a spade a spade. And I remember him in the 80s, he said that there are actually 2 more problems you will face after the problem of communism. And the one, he said, was Islamic extremism, and the other one, he said, was organized crime. So, how do I apply our situation today? I think that America must express absolute moral clarity, and that we must stand up for the freedoms enshrined in the Declaration of Independence. So that would include insisting that all people of the world be allowed to have free elections, that all people of the world should have the right to choose their own leaders, that all people of the world should have the right to absolute religious freedom and freedom of conscience, and that free speech rights should be the provenance of all the people of the world. So I'll conclude by saying this. In the year 2009, there was a revolution in Iran. It's called the Green Revolution. There was a so-called election that was stolen by the regime, the Ayatollah regime, which I would call an Islamofascism. Islamofascism. The people of Iran took to the streets by the hundreds of thousands, wanting to have a free and fair election. And sadly, the United States government came down on the side of the regime and not on the side of the people. That was a historical failure. So I would hope that America would stay true to her founding, exercise absolute moral clarity, and call tyranny for what it is, whether it's tyranny of North Korea, Iran, Cuba, any of these countries. We must be clear. And by standing up in truth, in clarity, we can work for the liberation of all people. Thank you very much.